Welcome to Chinese Makes Sense video number 3. In this video, we will be comparing English versus Chinese. Phonogram versus logogram. When you're designing written format of natural languages, there are two essential aspects, pronunciation and meaning. It's impossible to focus on both of them, so trade-off is needed. English letters are phonograms. The pronunciation info is reliable, but they don't carry meanings. On the other hand, Chinese characters are logograms. They carry meanings, but the pronunciation info is not reliable. For English, we use letters and words. As you all hopefully know, there are 26 letters in the alphabet, and you combine those letters to form words, which have meanings. However, Chinese uses strokes, characters, and words. There are 8 basic strokes, and strokes have no meanings. Strokes are combined to form characters, and characters have meanings. Then characters are combined to form words. Of course, words have meanings. Continuing, Chinese uses strokes, characters, and words. There are 8 basic strokes, all used in this character, which means forever. Those 8 basic strokes can be used to create thousands of characters, which you can then combine to form many words. Now let's use some numbers to compare English and Chinese. First, let's look at the total number ever used in history. For English words, there are about 1 million. For Chinese characters, there are about 85.5 thousand. And for Chinese words, there's an estimated 370,000. Most of the words and characters ever used in history are obsolete. So now let's take a look at the number in the comprehensive dictionary. For English words, there are about 171,000. For Chinese characters, there are 13,000. And for Chinese words, there are 70,000. Now let's take a look at the average adult native speaker. An average English speaker has vocabulary of around 20,000 to 40,000 English words. A Chinese speaker has vocabulary of around 3,000 to 5,000 characters. And unfortunately, we don't have information for Chinese words. That's our fault. Haha. Finally, let's look at a decent non-native speaker. An English speaker knows about 10,000 words, and a Chinese speaker knows about 2,000 characters. And once again, we have no information for Chinese words. To further compare English and Chinese, let's consider 2 identical groups of people. People in one group only learn English, and people in the other group only learn Chinese. How hard would it be for them to learn different aspects of language, like reading/listening/speaking? By the way, these comparisons are my dad's opinions only. First, let's compare difficulty in listening. In the beginning or mid-level, English is easier. This is mainly caused by pronunciation overloading in Chinese because different characters can have the same pronunciation, which makes it hard for the beginners. Now for native speakers, without considering dialects, they're about the same because your brain can handle pronunciation overloading well. Now for native speakers, considering dialects, English is easier because some Chinese dialects are hard to understand even for native speakers. Now let's compare difficulty in reading. In the beginning, they're about the same. There are no milestones for Chinese learners versus completing the 26-letter alphabet for English learners. Now for mid-level or native speaker, Chinese is easier. Vocabulary is the biggest problem for English speakers. For example, some people might not know the definition of flux-and-Austen amplification or anti-transubstantiationalist. But anyways, Chinese people have much less need to use a dictionary. Hear this. My father has never used a dictionary since he left high school. Details are explained in our last video. As David Burge says, yes, English can be weird. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. Now let's use even more numbers to compare English and Chinese. To cover 50% of all text, you'll need to know 287 of the most common English words or 152 of the most common Chinese characters. With a pretty significant leap to 70% coverage, you'll need to know a lot of English words, 2,983, but still not as many Chinese characters at 383. With just a teeny little jump to 73% coverage, you'll need to know 5,000 English words, but only 439 Chinese characters. For 95% coverage, you'll need to know 1,567 of the most common Chinese characters. For 98% coverage, you'll need to know 2,285 Chinese characters. We don't have any information for English, again, because our source only lets us use the top 5,000 common words. So if you feel generous by donating, we will need $60 to unlock more information. Difficulty in speaking. In the beginning, English is easier because there are pronunciation rules that help you speak. But for Chinese, there are no clear rules and each character has its own pronunciation. For mid-level, they're about the same. Although it has no clear rules, many Chinese characters contain hints for pronunciation. For native speaker, Chinese is slightly easier. Chinese high schoolers can memorize the pronunciation of 3,000 to 5,000 characters, which pretty much covers all common characters. Pronunciation rules in English have a lot of exceptions. For example, home versus come, tough versus cough, etc. If somebody says that Chinese is hard to learn, the first question you should ask yourself is, are they good at Chinese? If not, they don't know enough Chinese to claim that. If yes, then ask yourself, are they smarter than you? If not, Chinese shouldn't be hard for you. And if they are smarter than you, if they are good at Chinese, and they say Chinese is hard to learn, maybe they're right. In our previous comparisons, we only used opinions. This time we're going to use an actual fact. We're going to take an excerpt of the Declaration of Independence. We're going to use the original version in English, written by Thomas Jefferson and more, and the Chinese translation. We are going to compare the total number of words and syllables, reading, writing, typing, and talking speed, and etc. This is the English version, and this is the Chinese version. Now, using excerpts of the Declaration of Independence, we are going to count the amount of words. For English, there are 269, and for Chinese, there are 225. For syllables, there are 403 English and 455 Chinese. Now for letter/character count with no punctuation. For English, the number ramps up to 1,323, but for Chinese, it's still 455. Now, as you can see, the character and syllable count are the same for Chinese. Can you guess why? Because every Chinese character is one syllable. My dad did some experiments, and here are the results. For typing, it took him 4 minutes and 46 seconds to type the English, and 7 minutes and 45 seconds to type the Chinese excerpt. So clearly, English is the winner here. Now for handwriting. It took him 9 minutes and 10 seconds for English, and 9 minutes and 2 seconds for Chinese, so they're about the same. It took him just over 1 minute to read it in English, and 32 seconds to read it in Chinese, so Chinese is the winner here. Remember, these are only my dad's experiments, so if you want to go try, go do so and see if there are any significant differences. For talking, my dad did 2 experiments. First, he let Google Translate talk, and it took Google Translate 1 minute and 44 seconds to read it in English, and 2 minutes 12 seconds to read it in Chinese. Now for the second talking experiment, it's my dad's normal speed. It took him 1 minute 33 to say it in English and 1 minute 19 to say it in Chinese. Now, as you can see, Google Translate says English faster than Chinese, but my dad is a native Chinese speaker, so he says Chinese faster than English. Here are some fun facts in real life. In the US, most Chinese coworkers use English in Skype, but talk in Chinese. This is because it's much faster to type in English, as you saw in the previous experiment. Most native Chinese speakers who are also good at English prefer reading in Chinese, assuming the translation is good. This is because it's faster to read in Chinese, which you also saw in the previous example. Thank you for tuning in. Do you want to create or learn more Chinese? Please subscribe to encourage us. Chinese makes sense because it does.